Okay, so that was a so we're on lesson 135 and reviewing that. There's a lot in this lesson, and so what I suggest I'll do is go through. I've been through this lesson quite a few times and give you some just sharings of insights I've had and stuff like that, and then maybe we can go around and the Holy Spirit speaks through everyone and see what insights you guys have, or some of them has questions or whatever we're inspired to do. But just to start off, I think for me, and I'm kind of going into the other topic I was on, but it's helped me to understand this idea that we have in awareness, which is ourself, and we have. Again, these are analogies that are pointing out, because we're using the English language, but maybe you can get a sense of it. But we have two centers of consciousness. We have a center of consciousness that's intellectual, that's in the lower mind, and a center of consciousness that call it the higher mind or the heart. And we both have a sense of these. You know, you have a sense that, you ever say I'm torn on a decision? You know, my mind wants to do this, but my heart, you know, that kind of thing. In the lower mind is where we have the thinking mind, the intellect, concepts. It's where the ego exists, you know, that kind of thing. And the higher mind or the heart also has the capacity to understand, and it's much more vast. It's like if you watch a sunset, or you just really get something, you know, it's you can never push it through the little filter of the lower mind. It's like the lower mind is an iPhone, and the higher mind is a mainframe computer, and we have access to both of those. But it turns out the lower mind is very jealous, and it wants our attention, and particularly manifested as the ego. And the ego wants our attention, and the ego does what ego always does. Is its main thing is, I'm independent, I can be separate from God, I can do what I want, and by the way, you suck, and you're a failure, and but that's okay, I have the answer for that, right? I had a guy once that came and did a talk, and he was a coach for the Olympic ski team. And he said that by the time these American Olympic ski team, by the time these skiers get to me, they are the best in the world, right? They're going to win gold, win silver at the Olympics, because I can't teach them anything about skiing. But you do a circle, so this circle is what they know about skiing. Think of this as like their inner self. You do another circle and said, this is their mind that's telling them that they're terrible skiers. And he goes, my whole job as a coach for the skiers is to work with them so this part of their mind doesn't destroy the talent that they have. And he goes, and it was very interesting. So that was his, and he had no spiritual training. This is just his observation. So this lower mind is a very serious, but we both are living in these dichotomies. And the reason that's helpful is that, you know, you read stuff like this, and some of it you go, I'll just never get there. You might as well be telling me to fly to the moon. You know, but remember, the lower mind never gets there. The ego doesn't go along for the ride. The good news is the higher mind already is there, right? So there's no journey here. You know, I love the first page of the course where it says this is a Course in Miracles. It's a required course. Free will does not mean you establish the curriculum. That means, but there's something to do in the course. The course says choose you must, right? So there's something we have to do. But the choices are limited to 2. To give you any more choices of that would have been unkind. So we have choice. So there's something about this. There's choice, and choice implies intention. So I always say we have a superpower called intention or willingness, but we have to voluntarily decide to do that. And when we do that, there's a curriculum. Free will doesn't mean you set the curriculum. That takes you through a process of becoming more aware of this part of your mind, because we're all lost in the lower mind, particularly in this society has us tremendously entertained, you know, in the lower mind, one set of fear things. So with that, the reason this is super helpful for me anyway, is if I had to fix my lower mind, forget it. It just doesn't work. It's endless. It has endless fear, endless neurosis, endless, and the good news is the course is not a lower mind fixing program. It's not an ego fixing program. It's not, there's nowhere in this. It is a reacquaint you with your higher mind path. And isn't that cool? So we can leave the ego. We can, I listen to these teachings called the Raj teachings, and the way he puts it is you can learn to ignore this thing. It goes blah, 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 blah. You can learn to ignore this thing. And so suddenly you can read these differently and go, oh, I see. If I allow the Holy Spirit to polish, think of the heart as that, you know, as this lens, and he's polishing it every time. And so you become more and more aware, but the awareness of the heart is very vast, and it's also very subtle. But we have to voluntarily turn towards it, and that's what we're doing in our practices. That's what we're doing when we're establishing a relationship with Holy Spirit. And that's what the Course is really about, is trusting this thing called the Holy Spirit to show you this different thing. rather than being lost in another ego scenario. And of course the most powerful part of ego if you're is spiritual ego, right? Because it has it all figured out, and everyone they're right and you're wrong, or you're wrong and they're right, whatever. It doesn't care as long as you're giving it authority. And the Holy Spirit is saying, no, don't listen to that. Listen to me. And those are the two choices. And if you listen to Him, all this stuff suddenly becomes possible. And so, therefore, the ego's telling you this is impossible. I'll never get there. People always say to me, "I'm just not there, Ken." I'm like, "Yes, you are. There's nowhere to go. You're all the equipment that you're ever going to have, you got right now. This is a matter." But we're egoholics. We're addicts. Eckhart Tolle says thinking is an addiction like alcohol and drug addiction. And so the thinking mind, lesson 12, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. So what we're thinking about should give you a clue. It's not really where the action is. Now the ego says it's the only place the action is. All my stories, that's what it's about. Those are real. Well, okay, I've had some spiritual training, so I'll give up 60% of it. But those 40%, that bastard that did that, you see what I mean? And the Course is saying, no, all of it. All of it is defenses. All of it is stories that isn't working. But don't worry about it. The distance between you and your heart is closer than your jugular vein. The teachers will say it's right there. And so, but we need to be shown it. We need to do our part and make that decision. And then we have a path. It seems like in time to doing that we're each given practices to do that more and more involve meditation. The reason meditation is so important, this is what my whole seminar is on, because I think it's neglected in the Course. See, Course students like to take these 500,000 words and digest them and think if I just read more, right? Lower mind education. Well, what this ends up doing is breaking your lower mind. I wrote an article called "Defeated by A Course in Miracles" about 8 years ago because I went, I'm never going to get this. My intellectually, it's broken. It's shifting sands. But if you go into lesson 360 and you go into, like lesson 189, it says, forget everything you know, forget this course, and come wholly open-handed into your God. He knows the way to you. And it kind of gives you a clue. This isn't about me doing anything from the lower mind level. It's about me surrendering the lower mind voluntarily and allowing Holy Spirit to polish my heart as you will, and that the heart becomes more and more aware. And the Sufis would say, I have a Sufi order that I sit with for meditation, and would say that they call it intuition. Your intuition gets stronger and stronger. It's the Holy Spirit is showing you what to do. And so suddenly we get this lesson where he says, here's how you could live. And you could do that now. And your ego says, I could never do that because I don't know. And he says, yeah, but we're not using that piece of equipment. We got a GPS. The ego can't get there, but the part of us can. So I love this lesson for that. And one of the key things, if you get anything out of tonight that's helped me, is in paragraph 11, and it says, a healed mind does not plan. Now, I'm a business person. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad was a CEO. I run a team of people, and I sell software. We distribute software, business to business and all that. I got to do forecasts. My life is planning, and it has been for a long time. And how does that work? Well, what changed everything is not the first sentence, a healed mind does not plan. I had a real problem with this with the Course, because how do I live my life? It's that second sentence that comes after it. And it says, it carries out the plans that it receives through listening to wisdom it's not that own. It waits until it has been taught what to do, and then it proceeds to do it. Oh, I get it. A healed mind doesn't plan, but a healed mind does receive plans. Like, I had to come here tonight. Is that not a plan? Well, yeah, but I received the plan. Eileen says, do you want to come tonight? It felt like the right thing in the heart, and so I can't. You see, that's receiving a plan. And then I realized it was bigger than that. There was a flow going on. See, our egos like to give us this idea that we're just independent little entities, and we have the ability, anytime we want, to walk out of the front door every day and go left if we want, go right if we want, do whatever we want, and it's as if the world is arbitrary, that's an ego-based viewpoint, okay? And that's not correspondent in any living tradition. From Taoism to Christianity with a God that's omnipresent to even Buddhism that's based on a karmic engine of even cause and effect. Okay, the world is not arbitrary. We're not flipping coins here and 50-50. There's a pattern. The Course even says free will doesn't mean you set the curriculum. That means there is a curriculum. Oh, by the way, that means you're also not responsible for it. Isn't that cool? Yeah, fuck. We just have. Therefore, the best prayer that I could do every day is, please help me to be on my plan. And where I screw it up, can you fix it? right? That's the most powerful prayer you can do. Let me be on your plan. You've got one, you know, and so there's not an arbitrary, so there's this flow and everything's interacting. And in the Manual for Teachers, it says the people you meet are not arbitrary. They're completely planned. So the whole thing is planned, or it's not arbitrary. So I get it. I just got to be in a flow. So I get it. What I'm getting is I'm getting the plans I need for my little part. Oh, I get it. We're all in a giant, like multi-musical ensemble. You know, you're doing trombone, you're doing violin, you're doing drums, and I'm getting my little piece of music. And if I play my little piece of music and you guys all do, we make a really nice song together. You know, so there's a bigger picture here. Now the ego doesn't like that. The ego wants this idea: I'm an independent entity and I can be a replacement for God and do what I want. And so the Course says, no, we're surrendering. What are we surrendering? We're surrendering ego. We're surrendering to our higher mind. We're actually surrendering the lower mind. And the idea is the lower mind, you don't need to get rid of it. You can ignore it. It's noisy, but you also use it. It becomes a dumb servant. This is from Way Mastery. He says that there's no problem with this thing. The problem is you made the dumb servant the master. Instead of Holy Spirit being in charge. So now we're just shifting these around and saying, but it's hard because we're egoholics. Ask any alcoholic. You know, it's so simple not to take a drink. It's really hard. And you go to A meetings and you let God get rid of the addiction and stuff. And you're okay. If you stay close to God, you don't drink. It's the same thing with us. If we stay close to God, when the ego sucks us back in, it's okay, you know, give it to Holy, and that's the practice. And we're all given practices that have to do a lot with prayer and meditation. Like, the nice thing about meditation is you start having experiences that don't involve your five senses, and so you get comfortable with that. See, the ego wants you thinking the only way for you to have experiences with these five senses. It ain't so. The experiences beyond the five senses are way more interesting than this. This is very limited being this body. You can have huge, you know, and so meditation helps with that. Prayer helps with that because it's setting intentions. Also, you know, Buddha said, what's the three keys to waking up? Buddha Dharma saying that Buddha, the fact you're already it, nowhere to go. The Dharma, which is the teaching about it, the Course of Miracles is Dharma to me. And then, but that makes sense, right? You're already it, and someone's got to tell you about it. The third one's very interesting, the Sangha. Why did he make the Sangha equal? The Sangha is a community of people that support each other in the process, because we're all egoholics. We need our egoholics group. We need our mighty companions to support each other. It's an interactive process, not from the ego, but from the joining. And the Course is very interactive. We even become, it even mentions it here, our bodies become communications vehicles. And so there's a lot in it, but we don't have this big leap to fix our egos. And the ego desperately wants us, all of our spiritual processes, to be about fixing it. And it just isn't. We can ignore the ego. And if you've ever learned meditation, in Buddhist meditation, you sit, you know, and you let your thoughts come and go. And after a while, it took me about 1,000 hours of meditating before the penny dropped. And when I lived in a Shambhala house, and it was about 6 months in, you had to meditate all the time. And I went, oh my God, I'm not my thoughts. I'm here, they're there. And it just, one day, just snapped. And I went, there's a part of my mind that thinks, and I can be aware of that. It's exactly Eckhart Tolle's enlightenment moment. He realized that this thing that was depressed and him were two different things. And he said that's the whole thing collapsed for him, and that's the last real thought he ever had. And he lives in his higher mind. Now, someone like Eckhart probably, we won't go there, that's another discussion, but there's not a path the way he did it. He's showing us the end. So we all, humble people like us are on a journey together, so something like that. But anyway, so we have this higher mind, and this higher mind can manifest itself, and it can receive plans. Isn't that cool? So there's a flow, but you're not just receiving plans in a vacuum, you're receiving your bit for what you're supposed to do. Eileen received an inspiration to call me and say, come be here. I responded to that. I had to change some things around. So it's destiny that, you know, in the flow that we're all together, hearing and doing exactly what we need to do all together. I'm not more important than you guys. I happen to be saying the words, but frankly, I don't know half of what I'm saying, you know, when I'm done. And we did a whole seminar. We were on the train going back. I said, what did I even talk about? I don't remember. People come up and say, thank you so much for saying that, and I honestly don't. Because this process is highly interactive, and you start to get it. You don't need to know. The ego doesn't need to know. And this is kind of what this is getting at. So that's really important. A healed mind doesn't plan, but it receives plans. So that's pretty cool. So when you receive the plan to go, and I do my whole business, you know, but now it's a very creative process. It's through inspiration. I ask Holy Spirit, should I do this spreadsheet? What should I make the numbers for next year? I've been doing this for 8 years. It works brilliantly. And it's like my ego's saying, you've got to see that person, and I try to get that person. He's not returning my calls, and Holy Spirit goes, you don't need to see him. Just chill. because you need to be doing this other thing you're not aware of. And so, and it works, and there's just a flow, and you can relax because it's no longer of you anymore. You're not, and the ego is so limited in what it knows. It doesn't know anything. It can't see the future, and it's data points for calculating anything. It's a calculator, right? It's always calculating, and mostly saying calculating why you suck. And if you don't suck, somebody else does, right? So that's what it's doing. So, and the ego works on grievance energy. Grievance energy is where I resent something. Everything from the way you behave to that it's raining today. It doesn't matter. The grievance energy hides the light. Grievances hide the light of the world in me. If you're in a 12-step program, it's the number one thing. It's called resentments. You don't allow. Why? Because it blocks your connection with God. Who's keeping you from drinking? God. Don't want to block the connection with Him. So you don't entertain grievances. And there's only one thing worse than a grievance or a resentment. That's a justifiable grievance or resentment, where you actually deserve to